Welcome back to the Clean Hits Hockey Podcast. We've got an exciting episode today, and with a very, very, very special guest, Matt McConnell. If you're an NHL fan, chances are you've heard Matt calling games on TV for several teams across the league. Over the years, he's been the voice for the Anaheim Ducks, Pittsburgh Penguins, Atlanta Thrashers, Minnesota Wild, and of course, the Arizona Coyotes. Along the way, Matt has picked up 2 regional sports Emmy Awards in Atlanta and was named Arizona Sports Broadcaster of the Year in 2013. With decades of experience as a TV broadcaster, Matt has seen the game evolve from the booth and has been part of some unforgettable moments in the NHL. Today, we'll hear about his journey, the teams he's worked with, and of course, his thoughts on the NHL's newest team, the Utah Hockey Club. We're excited to have Matt with us, so let's dive right in and give him a warm welcome. Matt, how are you doing?
Guys, I'm doing great. Thanks for the warm-up. That bio, I thought we were going to need another hour considering all the teams I've worked for.
No kidding.
You're in high demand, Matt. You're in high demand. Yeah.
Well, how's the move been to Salt Lake City? It looks like you may be kind of getting into your space, your new crib, if you will, and getting all settled in.
Yeah, it's really been a whirlwind. It's been just probably in the last 3 weeks. I've I got up here with my wife. We found a place. I'm living in the city. I've always wanted to do that. I've been pretty much a suburbs guy my entire life, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go live in the city, and I really enjoy it. The neighborhood's cool. There are a lot of, neat little places to go. I went to a local place last night and watched some of the Thursday night game, the big Bills win, right? I'm not a Bills fan, but it was a big win. And, and I'm not that far from Delta Center, so I guess I could walk. Although I guess the weather is going to be here a little bit different than what I'm used to, but that's okay. I'm looking forward to the change of seasons and seeing some hockey weather. But it's been great. It's just nice to be out of boxes and be done with Amazon purchases for a while.
I bet. So how's the off
rolled around, right? Yeah.
Only a couple months.
2-month reprieve at most. Yeah.
So this offseason must have been a little bit different than the past couple of seasons you've had with the Arizona Coyotes. So how has this offseason been treating you?
Overall, it turned out obviously the way I was hoping it would turn out, and it took a little while, but that's I get it. There's a lot of things going on in the organization, and you certainly have to be respectful of everything that they're trying to do in such a short period of time. But my wife and I, we went over to Europe for a couple of weeks at the end of May. We like to usually go in June or July, but we just thought, let's beat the crowds and have fun. And then we came back and just waited to see what was going to unfold in Utah. And I'm thrilled to be here and excited to get going. As you guys know, the rookie tournament is going on right now as we're doing this. And it was great to see some of the rookies in town as well earlier this week. And then the big camp begins in earnest next week.
That's big league, Matt. If you want to take your mind off things, you just escape to Europe. That's pretty good. Some of us go for a walk in the park, but the McConnell, they skip over the pond and they do a Euro vacation. I love it.
Boy, I'll tell you what. We went to Serbia. We went to Croatia.
No way.
We hit Ljubljana, Slovenia. It was crazy. It was just really, really nice. And you can go to Europe for probably the same price it would be to go to New York City or something like that. So we're big into the travel. We like to go and see different places.
That's amazing.
And we mentioned the teams there in the intro, the different teams you work for. So, seeing different places, this is going to be your 6th team now, but really interesting to look at your history and 2 of the teams you've worked for, Anaheim in 93 and then Atlanta in 99. So 2 teams with a fresh start and now 3rd time's a charm here in Salt Lake City. Your experience with Atlanta and Anaheim, does that maybe feed into what you're going to be doing here in Utah?
I think it's I think it gives me an idea of what will happen, right? And each situation was a little bit unique. In Anaheim, it was unique simply because it was my first National Hockey League gig, and that was a lot of fun. And we were all cast members, believe it or not, because the team was owned by the Walt Disney Company, and that was fun. Just getting to get into the league. Living in Southern California was pretty cool. The weather was always perfect. We had all sorts of new places to explore. I thought Atlanta was a lot of fun too. Atlanta was actually my first full-time television job, and Atlanta was interesting because when the team was pretty bad starting out, they were routinely selling out, and then I think when the novelty of Atlanta started to wear off, so did the sizes of the crowds and things like that. Georgia is college football 24/7, so it's like Georgia, the University of Georgia, and everybody else. And now, Utah, I think is unique amongst the other two because Salt Lake is on the verge and has obviously always been a very good sports city, but now with the National Hockey League, I think they're taking another step. The Utah Jazz, I believe, have sold out approximately 265 straight games. So, Ryan and Ashley Smith, when they did their press conference back in April, Ryan pointed out, he said, Utahns just show up, they come out and I'm starting to see what he means by that, because I think there's a real good buzz here in Salt Lake, and you saw it in the prospect games over the summer, where they had really nice crowds at Delta Center. I came up in April and I emceed the Meet the Team event, and they had to lock the doors 45 minutes before the event even started because they ran out of seats. So I got a real good taste and indoctrination and how excited the fans are back in April on that day.
Amazing. All the different stops you've had, the 5 different cities. Do you have a favorite player you've had the opportunity to watch over all those years?
Oh, well, in Pittsburgh, Mario Lemieux,
Right.
In Anaheim way back, Teemu Selanne, just terrific human beings. Mario was a guy that I grew up watching and idolizing. There have been so many good players. We had a bunch in Arizona. A lot of them are making the move here to Utah. Lawson Krause is the salt of the earth. There are just so many good players. Connor Ingram, good people. You know what I mean? And so that part's been a lot of fun. And I'm sure it's going to be no different now.
And with your role, another change too is you're going to have a new broadcast partner in Dominic Moore. What's your relationship like with him? Like, have you met him before? And also, how do you build that rapport in working with a new partner?
That's a great question, Corey. It first of all, I didn't know Dominic at all, and I had a really good run with Tyson Nash for 13 seasons. We had a lot of fun. We laughed, we joked. It was a good run, and Tyson's a really good person. He's a good broadcaster, and I certainly think he's going to land somewhere. It's just a matter of where and when. He's very, very good. But Dom, I didn't know Dom at all, and then I met him on a Zoom call when they made before making the announcement. And now we've been going out to the Oval over the last few days. And, I got to watch myself because he's a Harvard guy, right?
Yeah.
And, and I went to the Harvard of East Lansing. That's Michigan State University, right? But it's a little bit different. But he's, in all seriousness, he's been great. We've had some really good conversations. We're actually going to get a couple of dry runs because we're gonna broadcast the LA preseason game a week from Monday night, and then I believe we're doing the game down in Vegas as well. So we'll have an opportunity to, kind of get a couple of practice runs. We'll probably, even the games in the preseason that aren't being televised, we'll probably sit there and do some mock calls and things like that. But he's a really good person. He's a family guy. He's a guy that actually has been with more teams than I have over the years. So I let him know that every once in a while already. But he was a guy that always was in demand because he was a heart and soul guy, a gritty guy that could play up and down the lineup. And his role completely changed. When he was at Harvard, he was a goal scorer and he was an All-American. So, a lot of times when guys get to the league, they have to kind of change the way they play to survive. And Dominic had a really good career. And so I'm looking forward to working with him and Nick Olczyk, who's kind of the future generation, if you will. He's coming in from Seattle. I worked with his dad on NHL radio, Eddie Olczyk, back in the day. So just a really good crew. Sarah Merrifield's going to be doing our sideline. Kim Becker's going to be doing the studio. So we've got a really, really good group.
It's going to be really fun to watch.
It's funny you mentioned that Harvard connection. We got Dom Moore, we got Kerfoot, and then John Marino now. So a lot of big brains in the room.
Oh, I know. Where's a guy like me gonna fit? I like.
Well, I mean, it shouldn't be that big of an adjustment from Tyson Nash, right? Because Sherwood Park, Alberta, is basically the Cambridge of Alberta, right?
It is the Cambridge of Alberta, and and we used to. It was funny because when we'd leave the old Rexall place, we would always go to get to the airport. We'd always go through Sherwood Park, and you'd hear him in the back of the bus going, "Ah, guys, don't be jealous when you see those Sherwood Park smokestacks. Don't be jealous." And that was a lot of the fun of working with Tyson is he kept it loose and always kept it fun. But yeah, it's well, I worked with an Ivy Leaguer in Atlanta because Darren Elliott was a Cornellian. So the fun thing about working with different people is I only made it to Bantam, right, in Minnesota. So I learned something from everyone, and there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't learn something from Tyson. And I'm sure it's going to be the same thing with Dominic. He's seems like a really good person.
So growing up playing Bantam in Minnesota, who did you idolize in the league? Who was your favorite player?
Well, I'm going to really date myself, but we were only in Minnesota for 3 years. My dad worked for a steel company, and we moved around quite a bit. But originally, it was going to Blackhawks games because I spent about the first 10 years of my life in Northwest Indiana. So back then, I followed the Blackhawks quite a bit, and Bobby Hull was my idol at the time. So it was I don't know, through the years. Went to high school in Pittsburgh. Certainly, guys like Mario Lemieux. They had a big influence on me. And then when I went to Pittsburgh as a broadcaster, it was pretty cool to be able to cover Mario on a daily basis.
Yeah. So you played all the way up to Bantam. You moved around a lot, got a lot of exposure to different teams. How did you get inspired to go into broadcasting? And was it always your goal to broadcast in hockey specifically?
Trent, I'll tell you why I got into broadcasting. Because I failed math and science as a freshman at Michigan State, and I knew there was no way I was going to get a degree in finance. That did it. No, seriously. I got there in the fall of '81, and first of all, I was surprised I even got in there because, but the economy back then was really bad, and I think if you applied and your check didn't bounce, they took you back then, right? So I get up there and I got a 0 in math. Perfect. I got a 0 in science, and I got a 3.0 in English. And I come home, and my dad says, "Hey, your post or your report card came." And so I open it up, and I see 0, 0.0, 3.0. I mean, it was like something right out of Animal House, right? And I look at this thing, and I'm kind of quiet. My dad's like, well, what did it say? How'd you do? And I go, Dad, this can't be right. It says I failed math and I failed science and I got a B in English. And he looked at me and he goes, "Give me that thing." And so he pulls it out of my hand and he goes, "Nope." He goes, "You failed 2 of your 3 classes." and he looked at me and he goes, "Did you study?" I'll never forget that. And I told him, I said, "Dad, I studied, but I didn't know how to study." Right. So anyways, that's Christmas. My Uncle John comes by the house. We always had him over for Christmas Eve. And he was a sports editor for a daily newspaper outside of Chicago. And, he covered Notre Dame forever. He had his own column and everything. And I said to him, I said, "Uncle John," I said, "Can we talk here?" And he goes, "Yeah, what's going on?" And I said, "Well, I didn't do really well. And I don't think I'm going to be able to get through finance because I can't handle math and science." And I said, "I've always kind of thought in the back of my mind what it would be like to do something like what you do, or maybe even get into sports broadcasting." And he had one of those highball glasses, those and he had a scotch, and he had like a couple of rocks in the scotch, and he's going like 3 fingers deep on the scotch, and he takes a big old swig of it, and he goes, "Well, you know what, kid? You don't want to look 20. You want to get, what did he say? He goes, you don't want to get down the road 25 years from now and look back and say, what if?"
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And then I said, you know what, that's it. I'm gonna pursue what I really want to pursue, and that was sports broadcasting. And I went back, and telecommunication at Michigan State didn't require any math or science, so I'm like, okay. And from that point, it was smooth sailing, and here I am talking to you on a Friday in Salt Lake City.
That's
Wow.
it. A confluence of many events that led you in the right direction. And now you get to look back and know that you made the right choice. I mean, you're working in the NHL. It's really amazing how it all turned out from that one conversation.
Well, and Darren Elliott in Atlanta, he always used to say, do what you love and love what you do. And that was something that I'll never forget. You know, Darren's a very intelligent man, and you know, a Cornell guy, Cornell grad. And that's what he'd say. He'd always say, do what you love and love what you do. And I can honestly say I'm one of those people in the minority that loves what they do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're talking about so many different people in the game that you've worked with, and the great individuals you've worked with. And I think for the people of Utah, they know their sports and they do show out, you know, as Ryan Smith said, but hockey's a little bit different. As diehard former Coyotes fans here, we know all about it, but I wonder if there's anything you could share with the good people of Utah about what makes hockey the greatest sport on earth.
I think it's got the greatest and most relatable athletes of all the sports. We've never had a problem not, you know, having a player show up for an interview. They always show up. They always give us great answers. They're always personable. That's never been a problem. I think hockey witnessed live is by far and away the best live sport to watch. It's not even close. I think with the pace and the speed of the game over the last 15, 20 years, it's only going to get better. I mean, the skill level, you guys know this, it's really good right now in the National Hockey League. So I just think I truly believe those are big positives for the sports when it comes to, for the sport, I should say, when it comes to fans having a reason to show up and turn out. Now, there is a history, and I do want to point this out. There is a hockey history here in Utah. They go back to the old days of the Central League and the International Hockey League. They've also got an ECHL team here in Utah. They've got about, right now, I believe, about 500 kids playing youth hockey, and I think that's only going to grow. The one thing that they don't have is they don't have the alumni fan base like Arizona had, where a lot of the retired NHLers are the ones that are coaching the kids at the youth level. They'll have to get there on that. But I remember in 1987-88, I was working for the St. Louis Blues farm team in Peoria, Illinois, and we drew Salt Lake in the opening round of the playoffs. And we had a 3-2 series lead going back for games 6 and 7 at the old Salt Palace here in Salt Lake. And a young Calgary prospect by the name of Theo Fleury made his pro debut. And let's just say that series was over in a hurry.
Fleury's a legend. Yeah.
Yeah. A Hall of Famer. If you go to Hockey DB and look at his numbers, one of you guys do that, please. Because I want to say in 87-88, he had 16 or 18 points in about 7 games, something crazy.
Probably 100 penalty minutes.
and he was, the funny thing was, he lit us up in game 6. So we ended up having to play game 7 the very next night. And he was lighting it up again. But in the middle of that game, there was a real bad I'm not making this up. There was a real bad thunderstorm back in Peoria, and it knocked the radio station off the air in the second period. And we never came back on.
Oh,
and Bob Plager, the legend, right? He was doing color with me because he was our hockey operations director at the time. And our engineer interrupted us and said, "Hey, we just got knocked off the air. Stand by." And that was in the middle of the second period. And we never came back on. So Bob and I just sat in the booth and watched the Rivermen go down in flames, basically, because Theo Fleury was walking the team about every 15 seconds. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And we had Steve Konowalchuk on the show a few weeks back, who's the new head
sure.
coach of the St. Louis Blues affiliate, and he's kind of a Utah legend. So he was sharing stories about some of the legends who came through here. Joey Mullen with the Golden Eagles, so a rich tradition. I'm glad you brought that up, Matt.
My old partner in Anaheim, Charlie Simmer, played in Salt Lake for a while. Stu Grimson, the Grim Reaper, was in Salt Lake. There were Mike Vernon. Mike Vernon played with the Golden Eagles in 1985, 86. So there have been a ton of players that have come through. And the Salt Palace was fun. They would draw 8,000, 9,000 in that building. And that was back when they shared the building with the Jazz. So there is a hockey history here. And I hope we have an opportunity to maybe flush that out on the broadcast a little bit throughout the season.
Yeah, and I think you'll do an excellent job of that. That's one thing we were all talking about beforehand. Is you've got the ability to be a storyteller, and we appreciate that about you. But getting back to the Utah market, we never really knew what hockey in Utah would look like as Arizona fans.
Mm-hmm.
I got to ask about that introductory pep rally. That looked electric. What was that like for you, and what was your initial reaction to that?
I felt like I was running for office kind of a little bit, like I was up there and I was having a good time, and, the crowd was really feeding into it. It was nuts. We threw that whole thing together in about 2-3 days from the time that they said, hey, do you want to do this? And originally I think Tyson Nash was probably slated to do it. And, he's like, well, I think this is more of a play-by-play thing. Yeah. So I jumped on the flight with the team going up. It was amazing. The whole day was amazing. And I just had fun with it. I knew the crowd was going to be electric. I knew they were going to be a lot of fun. And so that's what we did. We had fun. Right. And when we handed the mic off to the players, the wireless mic, Nick Schmaltz was the first one to go. And I give Nick a lot of credit because Nick literally got up out of his seat and went towards the front of the stage and started talking to the crowd. And then he came back to his seat and he handed off the mic to Clayton Keller. And Kells is normally fairly reserved. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he walks to the front of the stage probably because Nick did it, right? It's a copycat league, as they say. and Keller looks up at everybody and goes, "What's up, Utah? How we doing?" and all that. And the place went nuts. Yeah. And then Liam O'Brien, of course, the whole spicy tuna thing. It was legend. Yeah, it was just so much fun. And I wrapped it up. And I was, the team stayed over, but I had to get back because I was officiating a wedding the next day. And I just remember walking through the concourse and I'm getting stopped every 15 feet. People are wanting to take pictures with me and they're, you got to be a part of this. Oh my gosh, that was great. And, they could not have been nicer. And so I get in an Uber and the flight was like at 10:30 that night. So I get in the Uber, I get out to the airport, grab a bite to eat, grabbed a beer. And I just remember sitting at the gate all by myself because it was still like 3 hours till the flight. And I was just exhausted. I think it was all the adrenaline just kind of wearing off. But it was it was so much fun to be part of that day. Right. And such a privilege and an honor to do that. And at that point, I knew, and watching the press conference that Ryan and Ashley had with Gary Bettman, those were the 2 points in this whole journey where I said, you know what, I really want to be a part of that.
And awesome. We're glad you were. That was really fun. I'd never seen anything like that, so that was really cool. We're glad that you guys did that for us. And
the other thing too, and I don't know if anybody knows this, but Ryan and Ashley, they opened up the concession stands, and I think everything that day was complimentary. They just, it was just, grab a hot dog, grab popcorn, grab a soft drink, whatever. Just a tremendous day.
Yeah. That's awesome. And a little bit of background on us. We're all diehard Coyotes fans, right? We're going to follow the team anywhere.
You guys making the trip up at all?
Yeah, we're going to try to. We're trying to coordinate that. Yep. I know a few of us have some dates in here, but it's something that I definitely want to do. Got a couple kids, so it makes it a little rough. But we're trying to bring as many Arizona fans along with us. And it's tough sometimes. What would you say to any Arizona fans that may be on the fence about continuing to follow this team?
Well, look, it was really painful at the end, and it was really hard. And I'm not just saying this, but part of me coming here, I almost feel like I'm holding the torch for a lot of people, and just trying to continue this journey, right? So it's personal, but I also, trust me, I know that there are a lot of people that aren't able to make the journey, and that, maybe they'll be watching from afar. But, I would say this, it's the vast majority of the players on this team are going to be the same players that you rooted for before. So if you love the players and you love the sport of hockey, why would you not continue, right? It's not Arizona's team. It's obviously it's a whole new start in Utah, but it's still people that you love to follow, love to watch, and them, a lot about them, and you love the sport of hockey, so why not, right? And that's kind of how I would approach it if I was a fan back there. And it's not, I'll tell you what, it's an hour flight. If you can swing it, you should come on up. It's Salt Lake is transforming. I mean, the downtown is vibrant. There's so many great places to, either grab a beer or have dinner. The Delta Center is going to be unbelievably raucous, I think, for the whole season, right? Yeah. So why not? And then the other part of it is I do believe a lot of our games are going to be televised still in Arizona. I don't think all of them are going to be. I gotta find that out, but certainly, there will be games, I believe, on 61 again, and also, the streaming services will have our games. So I would encourage everybody to continue on. If they love the sport and they love the guys before, why stop now?
Right. Well said. Thanks, Matt. It's awesome.
And Matt, you mentioned the journey, but on a day-to-day basis, curious as to what the journey is like for you. I mean, it's easy enough for us to go to the game or turn it on and it's over 2.5 hours, but that's not the case with you. There's all the preparation that goes into it. Half the year you're 41 games on the road. So what's a day in the life like as a broadcaster?
It's a lot of prep. I'm not going to lie. We have production meetings, just to, I'm already thinking about the game a week from Monday, and preseason is a little bit tricky because a lot of times you really don't know the complete lineup that's going to be playing that night. So you got to kind of prepare, with a wide net, to have information on a lot of different players. But typically, what'll happen is the day before a game, I'll go to practice. I'll talk to some players, but mainly I'll make sure I touch base with Andre and the coaches and so on and so forth. And then that afternoon before the day before the game, we'll have a production meeting, usually around 3:00, and it's usually a telephone call or like a three-way conference call or whatever, and we discuss what we want to talk about in the open. And a lot of those decisions are made either based on previous games and what happened in a previous game, or maybe injury news that's breaking, or what you might have gleaned from your conversation with the coach, things like that. So we have the production meeting. Around the production meeting, I'll prepare pretty much all afternoon. I do my boards in Excel spreadsheets, which has been a pretty good system for me. And then the day of the game, you get up, you update your information even more. Maybe the opposition played the night before, so you got to update all of their stuff. It depends. I'll go to the morning skate just to make sure that nobody's hurt, there are no changes, just to kind of get an idea of all of our storylines still work, things like that. And then I'll leave for I usually leave for the arena at about 3 p.m, and then call the game. And then I'll come back, and I won't watch the replay, but I'll watch some of it the following morning. And then you just start it all over again. And travel's a little bit different. If like our first road trip is to New York. So the day after the opener, we'll leave to go to New York and get ready for the Islander game. And I'll be on the plane. A lot of times I'll be doing my prep on the plane, you know. And if I'm not doing that, I'm watching something on Prime or so. But excuse me, that's typically what it is. It's kind of you start the day before, follow it through, and you get on this like treadmill of usually about 75, 80 broadcasts. That's a great question.
Yeah, makes for long days. Do you have a favorite road city and maybe a favorite road rink? And maybe that's two different cities.
You know what? Montreal's fun. Montreal's a lot of fun. Just, you know, where you are in the Bell Center, and you know, all the Canadian cities are pretty good because you're out on a gondola, kind of almost over the ice. Really enjoy those spots. Trying to think. Nashville's fun because, you know, it's a little bit different. But Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto, you know, like you go to Toronto and it's chaos in the morning because there's usually like 40 people covering the Leafs. And so, you know, we would go from, in Arizona, we would go from like myself, Heater, Craig Morgan, you know, Tyson, you know, just a handful of people to, you know, like this gaggle in Toronto, even Montreal. So the Canadian cities are fun. And I would say they're my choice overall.
Yeah, you know your audience. Those three guys are in Arizona. I'm the lone Canadian on the podcast, so it is a whole. I'm in Toronto, so it is a whole different animal here with the Leafs.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, I got the burning question for the Utah fans here. All right,
Brad.
What are your expectations for the team this season? Because we know we've been rebuilding from General Manager Bill Armstrong's kind of brilliant strategy, but it feels like we're finally turning the corner. And what is one player that you're extremely or particularly excited to watch this season?
All right. I don't think they're going to short circuit the rebuild. I think they're going to continue along on the process. And Bill kind of reiterated that the other day when he did his press conference ahead of the rookie group. They've got a plan and they're going to see it through. And if you look at the way NHL Stanley Cup champions are built, about 50% of them are homegrown, and the other 50% are guys that, you know, you either acquire via trade or you know, they're not your picks, right? So they've done their research on that. If you short circuit it halfway through, then you're only cheating the process and you're probably putting yourself a little bit further behind. But with all that said, I do think this team can take another step, and I do think the team will make another step towards the playoffs. Will they get there? I don't know, because I would think that with a rejuvenated blue line and bringing in John Marino and Mikhail Sergachev and Ian Cole, let's not forget Ian. He's going to be a great defenseman and a guy that, you know, knock on wood, has been very versatile throughout his NHL career, and he's a Stanley Cup champion. You would think that they're going to play with the puck up the ice a lot more, and that should provide a little bit of relief to both goaltenders. And it should also hopefully create a little more scoring offense down at, you know, the other end of the ice. So I think they have a chance, and I do think they will take a step. But, you know, look at the Central Division. Who are they going to lead?
Yeah.
Colorado's in that division. Dallas is in that division. I think the St. Louis Blues are probably going to be a little bit better. The Minnesota Wild are always lurking. So is it somebody in the Pacific that comes out? I mean, I didn't even mention Nashville. Nashville had an unbelievable offseason. Like they've cornered the market in all the great legends, right? So they will definitely take a step forward. But I think the keys to that are obviously health. How good is their back end, or how improved is their back end? And then I think Delta Center. I think with the fans on top of everybody and playing in a steep arena, maybe the steepest in North America, I think the home ice should help them. So those are all major factors. It's really hard to call, but I do think they will be better.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
And we appreciate the transparent answer. So, well, Matt, from us four, and large amount of Arizona fans, we want to personally say thank you for all the memories. I honestly got choked up the other night. I was rewatching the Mike Smith goal and how you and Tyson, you guys were just so elated. It gives me goosebumps every time.
Yeah.
Everything from that to the Shane Doan hat trick to the Yandel OT goal, and even the video game cast during COVID. I mean, you guys got us through that. That's something that we can't thank you enough for. So I just got one last quick question to close us out. If you had to choose the name out of the names that are available, the Mammoth, Yeti, Venom, Blizzard, Outlaws, or Hockey Club, what's your personal go-to?
You know what? I think they all work. How's that for a cop-out?
What an answer. What an answer.
Hey, and by the way, when we were doing those things during COVID, they would send me the video, and I literally did the audio track sitting inside my car because of the acoustics. So I go out into the garage, and I'd prop my phone on the armrest between the seats in front, and I'd sit in the middle of the back, and I'd call it. Because like right now, there's kind of an echo in this place, and I don't know if it's coming across on your StreamYard show here, but yeah, I did that. And then one time they said, "Hey, Matt, we got this great idea. We're gonna roll it back, and it's gonna be vintage 1988 video game, and man, it's gonna be so much fun." And they sent me the video, and it was like, the rudimentary video game where like you can't even see who the guy is.
Yeah.
There are no names or numbers on the back. And I said, guys, I'm not doing it. Like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, this is like right when video started. And so they're like, okay, well, you don't have to do that one, but thanks for doing all the other ones.
Yeah. Well, we can't tell you how much it meant to us. That was a trying time,
Okay.
obviously.
Yeah.
And
That's good to hear.
Yeah, it was so fun. It just gave us a nice little taste of the team we missed. And you've been an absolute pleasure. We really do appreciate having you, and we can't wait to see what you do in Utah, man.
Well, thank you. Thanks everybody. Corey, Brad, Trent, Kenny. It's a lot of fun being on your podcast. I know we were supposed to do this last week, and thanks for cutting me a little bit of slack as I'm moving in and everything. But anytime you want me on, let me know. And I really appreciate everything that you've done in the past, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys are on board with Utah HC. So if you make it up to Delta Center, come by the booth. We're top row, the lower bowl in the center, up behind the penalty box. That's where we're going to be. And please come by and say hello. And I think that'd be a great opportunity to see all of you again.
That's awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Thanks.
Bye. Well, that was fantastic. Matt McConnell had some fantastic answers to all those questions, and it was an absolute pleasure to hear a little bit more about him. So Utah fans, be excited that he will be doing your play-by-play every night. One of the best things about him is he really does show his emotion, shows a little allegiance to his home team, but sometimes that's nice. When you listen to more teams across the league, not every play-by-play is going to do that. So I think we are all going to really appreciate that. But it's been a busy week in Utah Hockey Club news. Rookie camp has officially begun. We're getting a lot of nice tidbits, especially from some of the local reporters like Cole Bagley, who are on the ice watching those games and giving us those insights. So make sure you're following him on Twitter. Sounds like Maverick Lamoureux and Cole Baudouin have been turning heads, which is extremely exciting, especially the Lamoureux aspect, because that is a key piece with a kind of shallower defensive pool, especially since the team took Tej Iginla in this draft in the first round, where a lot of people expected them to take a defenseman. So kind of thoughts on what you've been reading on Twitter, what you've been seeing coming out of camp, expectations here. What are you guys thinking?
Well, it's good to see Mav Lam turning heads, because as we talked about before, our right defense is pretty thin. So he's one of my like key players I'm going to focus on this year. I'm so intrigued by him. His frame, his size, his offensive ability. And he can also crunch guys too. So he seems to be a well-liked kid too. So I'm really excited to watch him. And I love that he's wearing the C at camp. That just shows that his teammates and his coaching staff love him too.
Yeah, I was really disappointed that he was injured again to end the year, and he couldn't go on that big run. His team made it all the way to the Mem Cup, and he couldn't be there to represent. So I think him having this opportunity to really shine in a rookie camp is going to give him a lot of momentum heading into the main camp. And I think down in Tucson, it'll be interesting to see how he adjusts to the pro game. He's still very wiry. I know he's made it a huge priority to add the weight. It's interesting that, all the injuries that he's had and the time he's missed on the ice may have equated to allowing him a little bit more time in the gym and maybe a little bit more time to add some strength to the frame. So maybe not wasted time, even if it wasn't time on ice in all of those games that he's missed over the last few years.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and just echoing what those two guys said, it's promising to see these early returns, but also important not to get caught up in the instant gratification. I mean, that's where this team has been burned so many times in the past, where players are rushed. I mean, this is still rookie camp, so he's dominating against rookies. And I mean, we've seen some talk that, hey, maybe he can make the team this year, but he's missed so much time and he's still developing because he's such a big, lanky body, right? Where he would best route for him, just go down to Tucson, play in the top 2, top 4 defensemen, play a lot of time, play a lot of games, because he's missed a lot of time. He had mono a couple years ago, then he had the shoulder injury last year, so he missed the whole Memorial Cup. It'd be cool to see him on Utah this year, but in the long run, let's see him on Utah in a year or two from now. Let's put him in Tucson.
I could. It was like it was clear that Drummondville missed him badly. They got pretty well outclassed in that tournament. It was pretty apparent, which team kind of didn't really belong in that dogfight that is the Mem Cup, and it was Drummondville. And the Voltigeurs were missing Mavlam, who I think was a huge part of their identity last season. So on the one hand, it's sad that he missed the tournament, but on the other hand, as somebody who's not really a Voltigeurs fan and as a Utah Hockey Club fan, seeing the team without him made me realize just what a big and valuable piece he was for them. It makes me excited about what he can bring to Tucson this year.
Yeah. And I could see a scenario, and I agree wholeheartedly with Corey. We do need to kind of be reserved and pump the brakes a little bit. He is an exciting prospect. He is a high pick. But he's going to need some serious development. But there could be a scenario, especially if Utah is not in the playoff picture toward the end of the year, which obviously we're not hoping for. That he gets a little cup of coffee in the NHL level. And it'd be nice to see it again, especially because it's an area of need on the right D, especially now that, there's news that Soderstrom's on his way out. So overall, really excited about it.
Yeah, and the team didn't bring Robert Pertuzzo and to just kind of have him play down in Tucson or anything like that. This is a defenseman who is going to be somebody that they'll carry, gives them that extra depth. It was kind of the depth signing we were all kind of asking for earlier in the offseason, and it just allows a little bit more insurance when the injury bug will definitely hit, because it always does no matter what. But I think you're right, Kenny. Near the end of the season, if they're not in the playoff run, that's a lot of the times where there's more spaces to be filled. Maybe some people, especially on 1-year contracts, get moved. People on the AHL team will get called up, get that cup of coffee, and kind of get their feet wet in the NHL. Before we move on to the Soderstrom news, you had a beautiful segue there, Kenny, but I do want to mention, make sure you're following us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube at Clean Hits Hockey. That's where you can kind of find all of our day-to-day content. And then obviously we have our blog, which is cleanhits.substack.com. Pretty soon here, we're going to just have it be cleanhitshockey.com. You'll be able to find all of our written content there. We put out about 3 to 4 articles a week. Right now, we're kind of in the middle of our preseason player profile grades, so that way you can kind of see every single roster player and what our thoughts were them on their previous season that they played, and kind of the expectations of what they'll need to do to either kind of keep that grade they received by us or improve that grade. And then the nice thing is each one of us that are writing about those players are going to be kind of keeping our eyes on them throughout the season, because we're going to give them that mid-year report card and that final grade as well. So just make sure you give us a subscribe, getting a couple articles a week, tons of prospect information that will be coming out during the season. And then obviously lots of fun stuff on the blog as well.
And if I may, Brad, real quick, we've got some cool stuff coming to social media, with X and with at Clean Hits Hockey on Instagram. We're gonna be doing some fun stuff. So get ahead of it while you can. We're really looking forward to what we got in store.
Yeah, we just dropped that sick Logan Cooley goal compilation that Kenny put together. It looks really awesome and grainy, and makes you get jacked up for what he may be bringing us this season once he's a little bit more comfortable.
Sure.
But moving on to the other big piece of news that kind of came out actually this morning, Craig Morgan, make sure you're following him as one of the Utah Hockey Club beat writers, has sources that have indicated that the 2019 first-round pick, Victor Soderstrom, will be planning to potentially go back to Europe. Unfortunately, there was no trade to be made within the NHL, and it doesn't seem like the team and him have come anywhere closer to making an agreement on a deal. Now, this was a leftover piece from the Chaika era. Chaika famously said they weren't leaving the draft without him in 2019, and has been a guy who's kind of played in and out of the lineup occasionally, but has just never been able to stick. Your guys' thoughts on losing an old former first-round pick in Victor Soderstrom?
Well, it stings a little bit because he was such a high pick. And I
there
did
were
have
guys around him that have made a bigure impact already.
Yes,
for sure. Significant. Yeah, significant. And I did actually have high hopes for Soderstrom when we first drafted him. He looked so poised with the puck. He was very calm, very smooth. I just don't think his game ever really transitioned well. Even in the minors, it for whatever reason, the bigger ice over in Sweden, when he came over here, it may not have been a good fit for him. There was multiple chances. He got multiple call-ups to the Coyotes, had big role in Tucson, and it just never panned out. And that happens, nothing to say about the guy himself. I'm sure he's a great kid. And I'm sure he's going to do great things overseas, but it does sting a little bit when you use such a high draft pick. What is he? He was 11th overall. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. And they traded the 45th overall pick to move up to get him. So he basically cost an 11th overall pick and a 45th overall pick, which is not terribly different than the package that was put together for Mikhail Sergachev.
Yeah, and there was some nice D in that draft too that could have been a fill in there. But overall, best of luck to him. But yeah, it's unfortunate. I hate to say this, but he's not going to really be missed.
Yeah, those next three picks he was taken at 11 and they trade up from 14. So 12, 13, 14, Matt Boldy, Spencer Knight, Cam York. And then
never heard of him.
Then Cole Caulfield right after that. So
yikes!
And if we hadn't traded up, right there, a couple picks later was Thomas Harley, who's on the Dallas Stars and looks just phenomenal. It's big 6'4" puck moving offensive defenseman, smooth as all get out. All the potential in the world, and Dallas is just so happy that they made that decision. And I'm sure that Bill Armstrong is not super pleased with the drafting of the previous regime. Clayton Keller notwithstanding, that was a great pick.
But I think overall, just not a lot of surprise over today's move. What we've heard over the summer, there didn't appear to be a lot of negotiation or maybe any negotiation. And if you want to talk about defensemen who fit a Bill Armstrong team, Victor Soderstrom's probably at the bottom of that list. Like, he doesn't particularly do anything all that well. He's not that big. He's just plays a little bit timid. I put on social earlier, he reminds me of a former Coyote defenseman, David Rundblad, where just very timid on the point, didn't have a lot of size, or certainly didn't use it. So, and if he's going to play in the bottom pair D, it's not going to work.
That's why I'm not the prospect guy. I had such high hopes for both those guys. David Rundblad, I'm like, yes, we turned Turris into David Rundblad, and
I watch a lot of prospects. I'm wrong a lot too. Everybody is. These kids are 17, 18 years old in their draft seasons. So it's hard to project. Soderstrom is one that Brad and I definitely when they made that selection. We're a bit crestfallen. It kind of put a huge damper on our little draft party that we were having at the time. But I did eventually have hopes that he would at least be some kind of an NHL regular. And I think that's where having a standout quality, or at least an idea of an identity of what the player is going to be, is really crucial. When it's somebody like Victor Soderstrom, who's just kind of okay at everything, like you said, calm and smooth, those are good qualities as secondary qualities, And I think that Bill Armstrong and his team really like to identify and draft kids who fit an identity. And it's not, totally homogenous, right? Like Dylan Guenther's not a big, mean bruiser, but you know what he is. You know what Tisha Ginla is. You know what Cole is, right? So I think that I really love the concept that Bill Armstrong and team is bringing to the draft table that John Shaika and team often didn't, which was drafting intentionally, right? Picking the best players available, but ensuring that they fit into a long-term vision of what the team's going to look like in the future. It just doesn't feel random like it did at times in the team's history.
Right. It's going to be up to Matthias Michelli and Akurati to carry the load from that draft class. All the other guys are gone or were never signed.
Yeah, Matthias Michelli 11th overall.
That's what I was just about
you
to
wouldn't
say.
hate it. Yeah, you'd be pretty happy.
So we just dropped the Matthias Michelli preseason report card at cleanhits.substack.com. Got to drop it one more time, but got to give him an A. I mean, he put up 50 points again last season, had 17 goals, which was a 6-goal improvement. I remember when he he came in and played like 6 games his first year kind of jumping into the NHL. And then 2 seasons ago, he had 11 goals and many, many more assists. I'm trying to think of what exactly it was, but there was the fabled story that Andre Tournier wanted him to start working on his shot and being more of a goal threat. And he kind of was just so reluctant. It would always kind of be pass first. So he told Matthias to just pass to the net.
I love that.
Seemed to work. But another thing I dug up when I was writing that article, there are only 23 players since 1963 drafted in the 4th round that have 500 NHL career points. Matthias Michelli has 112 right now. So if he continues a 50-goal pace for about 8 more seasons, he is going to be an absolute elite company. So kind of an interesting tidbit there.
What a nugget.
All of those preseason report cards are at the Clean Hits Substack, cleanhits.substack.com. I think that's about all the kind of news roundup that we want to talk about besides the jersey leaks. Just the whole kit looks sick.
One more bit of news as far as the roster goes, though, was the PTO for Kyler Yamamoto.
That's right.
Which has some definite impact into not rookie camp, but into main camp. So for new fans who aren't really sure, this is an invitation to try out, not a contract. So a lot of times veteran players will sign a PTO with a team to go into training camp with the goal of earning a contract and a spot on the roster through their effort there. Other teams also scout training camp, so it's not unheard of for a player in one camp on a PTO to play well and then be signed by a different team. So it works out well for the player too, because it's an opportunity to play in preseason games and be scouted and give themselves an opportunity either to make the team that they've signed the PTO with, or some other team can sign them as well. Kyler Yamamoto, of course, is a player who had a ton of success in junior, some early success in his NHL career, had a couple of productive seasons. He's a smaller player who you kind of really want to have a little higher in the lineup, or having a little bit more offensive opportunities for him to be at his best, because he is 5'8" and very slight. But he did have a 20-goal, 40-point NHL season a couple years ago in Edmonton. So it's not out of the question that he might be able to play his way onto the roster. But that competition is going to be very, very tight between him and Josh Doan and Michael Carcone and even Igor Sokolov, who we had on our show a few weeks back, who's in fighting shape and ready to win a spot. So it's going to be very, very competitive for the bottom 6 wingers in the Utah Hockey Club training camp. This is going to be a knockdown, drag out fight for the ages for those last couple of winger spots.
And I think another thing to really point out with these PTOs is the preseason games have requirements in terms of how many veteran players need to play, because fans don't want to go and just see all rookies, right? So, and I mean, the veteran requirement is little bit more lax in the preseason, where a guy who can play, I don't know, 1 or 2 seasons or something like that is considered a veteran. So some cases, hey, we just need to sign some guys. I think the PTO guys get like $500, something like that, to come in and play.
Nice.
Here's a little short-term opportunity. And they did this last year, right? They brought in like Ole Levy, they brought in Ryan DeZingle. And I think it's really just hit that veteran requirement. And maybe the best case scenario is they give him a 2-way deal to Yamamoto, and then he can play in Tucson. And then if there's, a string of injury troubles, he can always come up to Utah.
Yeah.
I think it'd be great to have depth like that. I think Yamamoto is an interesting player because if we have an injury in the top 6, you know what I mean? Or have an injury for somebody who would normally get more offensive zone starts, or something like, say, Nick Schmaltz misses significant time. Yamamoto might be a better call-up option than somebody on the farm who's more of a depth player, right? Or you might prefer to have him fill in spot duty there than you would Liam O'Brien or Jack McBain, or somebody move up in the lineup who's not really a fit for that role. Sometimes having just kind of a lesser version of a similar type of player is a little bit more seamless. So I think that'd be a great outcome for Utah. It's not what Kyler Yamamoto is hoping for, I'm sure. But yeah, a 2-way deal and a start in Tucson would be great for me.
And they still have 5 contract slots open, 45 of the 50 signed right now, and they're not going to be burning one on Victor Soderstrom, so maybe they can use one here.
Yeah, that's a good point. We also have some breaking news.
Oh.
The first Utah Hockey Club goal has been scored in rookie camp preseason game. We have our own Clean Hits Discord. In case you didn't know, you can find the link in our Twitter bio, or I think you can search for Clean Hits Hockey in Discord to find it. Come join. We have live game day threads, but one of our members, Superfin23, posted a link to the goal. Peter Ripsick scored what is technically the first Utah Hockey Club goal in any capacity. So there you have it. Just happened a couple minutes ago.
Nice.
The team's playing right now. Looking through the live chat that's going on in the Discord, it sounds like Mavlam is a big angry dude from Matic, one of our members there too. And on top of that, somebody, again, Superfin23, posted what the lineup is, and Cole Baudouin is playing on the top line with Julian Lutz and Mikko Matica, which, geez.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a line. Yeah.
Top line.
Yeah, and Repchik is a camp invite. He's an older player, undrafted. But he was teammates with Maverick Lamara and Drummondville for the Voltigeurs last season.
Cool.
And then a couple years ago, he would have been teammates with Thomas Lavoie for the Cape Breton Eagles. So big QMJHL star player there from Slovakia. I believe he also would have been international teammates with another camp invite that we have as well from the Owen Sound Attack. So a little Slovakia connection there as well.
Nice.
Very cool. Yeah. Then we got Sam Lipkin centering the second line with Noel Nord. Trying to find some more standouts. Looks like Anson Thornton is starting in net. Mavlam on the top right side. Artem Duda right below him playing on the right. Some interesting names.
Yeah. Exciting rookies.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, boys,
fun,
I think
fun tournament.
I think we made a dip and jump in to watch the stream, right?
Yeah, man.
I think you're right about that.
Enough chit chat.
That's right. I've got Servek Petrovsky to keep my eye on.
There you go.
Camp invite, one of my favorites. Slovakian invite. Keep an eye out for him, Utah fans. He does not have a contract. He probably won't end up with one, but man, he's got a great motor. He's been a lot of fun to watch in juniors. So keep an eye out for Servek Petrovsky and any chemistry he might develop with his countrymen there.
Very cool. Well, anything else that we need to cover? Anything else we need to sign off with, boys?
Nope. Just thanks again to Matt McConnell. Appreciate all three of you guys, and let's go watch some rookie games.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. All right, everybody. Again, you can catch us at the Clean Hits Substack at cleanhitssubstack.com. You can find us on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call that, and Instagram at Clean Hits Hockey. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, anywhere you want to listen to the pods. We got you covered. Otherwise, let's have a hell of a weekend. We're getting inches and inches closer to the regular season, and actual training camp starts. Is it next Wednesday? I believe
soon.
so. It's very soon, but boots are on the ground. People are having fun. People are loving watching hockey, and it feels real now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, signing off again. This is the Clean Hits Podcast. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your day, and have a good one.
We know we running it now. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change.